This book right here, BlackRoots Science by Modimoncho, gives the history of Voudon, also known as Voodoo. And it's on page 98 here. And it's real interesting. It has a lot to do with Yaqub, also known as Jacob, Israel. I'm going to go ahead and run the audio of the PDF. Check it out.
Okay, I'll be waiting. Meanwhile, give me your take on the Mamiwada. What's the history with that particular Voudon image? Peace. Part 1 of Voudon Religions 42. The religion of Voudon with all its symbols and goddess, as with all other African religions, are creations of the past 6,000 years. They did not exist before then. They all came about as a consequence of the teachings of Yaqub. Notice how many of your questions relate directly or indirectly to Yaqub, even when you apparently intend to ask an unrelated question. The reason is because this is really Yaqub's world, and just about everything in it results directly or indirectly from some part of his teachings. 43. I'll answer your question by relating briefly how modern African religions arose as a result of his work, but I'll leave the larger question of Yaqub until later. 44. Briefly speaking, Yaqub, after he made the light races, was compelled to teach them how to live. Civilization is always taught. It can never evolve naturally, as modern sociologists and the like would have us believe. It is not in the same realm of natural events as eating, sleeping, and procreating. In fact, without civilization, human beings naturally decline. 45. Yaqub was a great scientist knowledgeable in the entire circle of wisdom. Knowledge is called a circle because it starts at the starting point and goes around until it ends at the same point, but higher and larger. If you will, imagine a coil or a snake coiled on itself with its head resting on its tail. The head and tail are at the same point on the circle, but the head is at a higher 96. The causes of illness elevation. So it is too that the universe will end at the same point it began, which is divine unity, but at a higher level of wisdom due to the experience gained. That in brief is the true definition of wisdom, and in our language it's called a serpent due to the metaphor I just mentioned. 46. Yaqub took the circle or serpent of wisdom and condensed it into 6 major parts of knowledge. He left out the 7th part, divine unity, because it cannot be taught, but only experienced. He further divided each of the 6 parts into 60 parts, each one corresponding to 1 year of an individual's life. In his original plan of making the light races, their normal lifespan was to be 60 years, and in fact this is the average worldwide. So the 60 parts of knowledge correspond to, or sum up, what each year of an individual's life brings, or is supposed to bring. In terms of experience, life is supposed to be lived such that when a person reaches a certain age, he or she has gained in experience the equivalent of that amount of knowledge corresponding to that section of the 60 parts. 47. For example, when a boy or girl reaches puberty, he or she is supposed to have learned all that can be taught about sex and its 2 purposes. But this is no longer the case today. The same holds true for almost every avenue of civilized life, including such basic things as how to cook properly, or clean house, or grow fruits and vegetables. How many youths can do these things today, or if not actually do them, know them theoretically? 48. So the circle of knowledge was reduced by Yaqub into 360 parts, 6 by 60. The 360 parts or degrees of knowledge were not taught to the light races, but only to black people. All this applies to the past 6,000-year period. Before then, the division of knowledge was as follows. 49. BlackRoots. I like the way you break everything down so that others may understand in depth. Please keep up the good work. Peace. Peace. Part 250. Ancient knowledge was divided into 7 major parts. Then the 7 were each divided into 7,000 parts, each one corresponding to 1 year of the 7,000-year lifespan. That made a total of 49,000 subjects of learning. Therefore there were a total of 49,000 rituals. The vast majority of them are called minor rituals, and were performed differently in every town. Second are the major rituals, fewer in number and performed differently in every clan according to the 97. BlackRoots Science. Chief's teaching. The third type are 7 in number and were performed exactly the same in every tribe. They are called the 7 great rituals or festivals of the Black nation. Hence the ancient circle had 49,000 divisions as opposed to the modern 360 degrees. 51. Yaqub took 33 degrees of knowledge out of the 360 and established mystery or initiation temples to teach them to the leaders of the light races. In addition, he took 3 more degrees and added them to the 33 for a total of 36 and taught these to highly qualified individuals who passed the standards of selection he set up. 52. These 36 degrees of knowledge became the science of all the highest secret societies of the light races. They had their foundation in the temple schools of ancient Egypt. Selected individuals of the light races were recruited from around the world to the mystery schools and taught. They then went back and started secret societies, a few of which still exist to this day. In Egypt, the 36 truths of Yaqub became known as the 36 netters. The word netter means truth, and has been misinterpreted by Egyptologists to mean gods. 53. The original 360 degrees of knowledge formulated by Yaqub were taught in even deeper secret among the high priests of that time, all of whom were black. This knowledge was withheld from the netter mystery schools. The high priests migrated down into Africa when it became obvious that the decline of Egypt was inevitable. They took with them the original 360 degrees of knowledge and settled among 10 African tribes located across the entire African continent. These became the foundation of the 10 African schools of ritual initiation, as well as 2 others located outside Africa, which are practiced the same way to this day. At the same time, the knowledge of the 36 netters filtered down into the various African tribes when the priests began migrating out of Egypt into West, East, Central, and Southern Africa. It was from the science of these 36 netters that all the tribal religious systems of Africa originated. So in Africa today there are 2 types of schools of initiation, those of the original 360 degrees and those of the 36 degrees or netters. Add to that the 33-degree mystery schools that exist all over the world, especially among the light races, and that will give you an idea of the origin of the mystery or secret religions of the world. 54. Now, each secret religion is different. Hence there is Voudon, or the religion of the goddess Mami Wada, Mummy Water, or the mermaid goddess. It arose primarily out of reverence for water as sustenance of all life. So too did every religion have its primary god or goddess, as well as many lesser deities and all their symbols. 98. 55. Now, here is the important thing. This present cycle is the cycle of decay. We can also use the word deterioration or corruption or any other word with a similar meaning. Everything decays in this age, especially knowledge. God has increased or waxed in wisdom since eternity, and has never known what it is to decrease or wane in wisdom. One of the purposes of this cycle is to gain this experience. It befell Yaqub by preordination as the one to prepare the necessary conditions for evil, decay, ignorance, self-forgetfulness, to manifest. He went about it basically by first deteriorating the human body to a 60-year lifespan, and reducing the serpent of knowledge to 360 degrees, then further to 36 degrees and finally to 33 degrees. The 360 degrees are practiced by 12 modern black tribes today. The 49,000 degrees are held in abeyance in the custody of the 24 elders until the end of the age. The 33 degrees are practiced by Freemasons, especially the secret group called Rosicrucians on one side, and their opponents called Theosophists on the other side. The 3 plus 33 or 36 degrees are practiced by so-called masters of the light races, as well as others I will mention later. They are also practiced by the adherents of indigenous African and other religions such as Voudon. White people call this knowledge witchcraft or black magic in the hands of blacks, and white magic when practiced by them. The connotation is totally false, even though literally speaking the black and white terms are racially appropriate. When one considers the intent of the magic, then black magic is the true form of magic, whereas white magic is false. Both systems may use basically the same scientific principles, but the purposes to which each one is put determines whether it is true or false magic. Both systems rely on the 3 highest degrees of knowledge out of the 36 to formulate their highest principles. Of these 3, I'll mention only one. 56, 57, 58. Part 3 59. I'll mention the other 2 later, as they relate directly to the larger Yaqub story. 60. This 1 degree of knowledge is called psychic science. It's a science of the imagination. You may remember I introduced a brief account of this science in the biology discussion. This is a natural science, as are all true sciences, that relies on the natural God-given power of the mind to be creative. The mind is naturally and spontaneously creative, and one can see this in dreams, where whole worlds are created out of nothing. Although dreams are unreal, given that they are imaginary, the same applies to daydreams and fantasies. Nonetheless, their effects on the human soul is 99. BlackRoots Science absolutely real. A person may wake up from the most awful nightmare and be relieved that it was just a dream, but the fear he experienced was real. If he had come from somewhere where he had never experienced fear before, His dream experience of it will teach it to him as effectively as experiencing it in real life. It may not last long, but it is real at the moment he experiences it. 61. This is one manifestation of the natural psychic power of all people. Now the art or science of controlling this power comes in the phenomenon called lucid dreaming. This power, although powerful enough on an individual basis, can be increased dramatically by involving other people in it. This too is natural, following the law of rhythms. Human minds, with their seat in the brain, oscillate within a particular spectrum of frequencies. 62. It's possible to entrap this oscillation using the law of rhythms, according to which oscillations of the same frequency enhance one another and unite into a larger whole. When a person with a strong mind starts a certain type of imagination, and finds other people who are sympathetic to it, the rhythm of his mind will entrap those willing participants such that all of them engage in the same rhythm and thus imagine the same reality. That is exactly how children were taught in ancient days. The word entrapment is totally inappropriate in the ancient context. A more proper word would perhaps be resonance, where a teacher gets the children's minds and hearts to resonate at the same rhythm as his. But entrapment is quite appropriate in the modern context because the intentions and use of this science have become perverted in many, but not all cases. The truth of a science is determined by the intent of the user, so the same scientific principles can be used for both good and bad. 63. By this entrapment, it's possible to make willing people to believe in a reality that does not exist, that is totally imaginary. As the knowledge of the 36 netters deteriorated, so too were the proper uses of psychic science forgotten. In the passage of many millennia, the uses went from one end to the extreme until a whole slew of ancestral religions were formulated. Many psychically gifted people down the ages came and contributed to them and started new ones, or changed and modified the old ones. Hence, as time went by, there arose entire worlds of ancestral spirits that are totally imaginary. 64. The spirits possessed those willing to participate, causing them to prophesy, divinate, cure illnesses, cast spells, and many other related activities that you are no doubt aware of. They gave rise to fetishes, symbols, gods and goddesses, and new forms of rituals and sacrifices for enhancing the psychic power. What arose out of the corruption of psychic science is so. 100. The causes of illness convoluted and old in terms of centuries, that to try and outline it all would take many pages. 65. Suffice it to say that in every system that comes out of the original, there always remains a kernel of truth at its center. It is this kernel that is important for the reminding of black people about our ancient history. Those people who are involved in ancestral religions like Voudon are already at a decided advantage, and can comprehend the larger truths much more easily. 66. However, there is always the danger of getting lost in the maze of the psychic worlds if one believes in them and takes them to be real. The truth is that they only affect those who are willing participants because their power, even the power of their symbols, actually emanate out of the mind of the participant, and from nowhere else. Others with stronger minds get it started with suggestions, but the participant has to pick it up from there and take it all the way for it to be effective. Without willing participation it has no power. 67. That, in brief, is an explanation of the origin of secret religions. 68.